I found someone who's recorded his experience of going down with the Titanic. It's unreal, isn't it, really, that somebody thought to record some of his thoughts while he still remembered what they were.
There was no impact as such. It was just like jamming your brakes on a car.
Now, these are the eyes of a man. Look at this. I don't know if you can see my mouse on this screen. These eyes, I know the light is shining on them from the light that the people filming him are holding up, but doesn't he just look angelic? Look at him with his lovely silver hair and his teeth, and he looks healthy, and he looks like he's had life experience. Obviously, 'cause he's old, but he looks like he's survived. He looks like a survivor, doesn't he?
And that was that. She stopped. We had a porthole open, and I looked out, and the sky was clear, the stars were shining, the sea was dead calm. And I thought, I don't know, I couldn't understand it. So I came out of my cabin and I thought, well, I go forward. And I went forward to the well deck on the starboard side, and I could see ice in the well deck. There's no sign of iceberg then, because she'd passed us. And the lights were shining on the water from the portholes, and no sign of damage above waterline. And of course, what had happened, we slipped over the iceberg. And although she was supposed to be unsinkable with a double bottom, the iceberg had cut her from forward on the starboard side to the engine room, almost amidships, right through her two bottoms. And we had orders to get the lifeboats out. And because the same old order, women and children.
Same old order, women and children. The same old order. Do you think this means he's had the experience before? He's a survivor. Is he? He sounds like he knows all these shipping terms.
And we swung the lifeboats out and gradually filled them up. First boats were away on the port side. The first boats away didn't have many passengers on board. They were afraid to go down. There was a 70-foot drop to the water, and they didn't think she was going to sink. And a few of the first boats on the port side got away with half filled. Don't forget, we had 16 lifeboats, and they each carried 50. And if they'd been filled, we could have saved 800, whereas we only saved 500.
We only saved 500.
So you can imagine there were many seats in the first lifeboats vacant.
See, still, all these years later, he can still feel the regret of that. That must have plagued so many people, those lifeboats only being half filled. Like he says, in the middle of the night, it's dark, no one thinks the ship's going to go down, and you've got a 70-foot drop. 70 foot, that's a long way from the top of the ship to get into a lifeboat swinging in the middle of the night to hit the dark, icy waters below.
Then I had orders to go down the storeroom with a gang.
Okay, so he had orders to go down to the storeroom, so he was working on the Titanic, sounds like.
And get all the biscuits we could find. Well, when we got back up onto the boat deck, we couldn't get near the lifeboats. Some people were scrambling to get in and being pushed back. By that time, she was listing very badly to port, and we couldn't get the starboard boats down. But before I got my lifebelt on, I met a young couple, and I can tell you her name. It was Mrs. Clark.
Mrs. Clark, and he's looking at his thumb now as if he's really intently focusing on that, because I suspect he's having some feelings. Just a memory talking about it is bringing up feelings for him, remembering that person. He met a young couple.
They'd spent their honeymoon in France, and we'd picked them up at Cherbourg. And she was having trouble with her lifebelt. So I fixed that on to her. And I said, I think you'd better get into a lifeboat. And there was one in the port, on the port side. So she said, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to leave my husband. So I said, well, it's just a precautionary measure. You get in, your husband will follow later on. And I got her away, and that was that. And then I picked up my own lifeboat and put it on. Well, things went then, and then the third-class passengers were coming up. There were 700 of them, and they swarmed the decks and filled up the decks. And I thought, well, I'd done all I possibly could. I'd helped them all I could. And I thought, oh, now I'll go up and get out of all this scrumming and go on the poop deck. And she was sinking fast then. And all of a sudden, she lifted up quickly, and you could hear everything crashing through her. Everything that was movable was going through her.
That must have sounded like some sort of a bomb going off, mustn't it? Can you even imagine the terror, the noise of everything breaking as the ship is literally moving? You know when you're in an earthquake and you see people that are in earthquakes and everything's moving, they're absolutely terrified and they're trying to find safe ground and they hit the floor because they're trying to hang on to something solid. Imagine that experience with everything around you moving and there's nothing solid underneath you because you're in the water.
And then she went down and seemed to come up again. So I thought, well, now I'm going to leave. And I was hanging on to a board. We had two boards, starboard and port, which said, keep clear of propeller blades. And I was hanging on to one of these, and I was getting higher and higher in the air. And I thought, well, now I'll go. And I dropped in. I had a lifebelt on. And I hit the water with a terrific crack. And luckily, I didn't hit anything when I dropped in. There were bodies all over the place.
So he's had so many strokes of luck, right? He's managed to have a lifebelt. So he's got a lifebelt on. He's hanging on to something for dear life. He's surrounded by people that he's tried to help. He's climbed up high and he's had to drop off. He didn't say how high he'd fallen in, but it sounds like quite a height. And then another stroke of luck, he didn't land on anyone when he hit the water.
Then I looked up at the Titanic. There the propellers were right out of water, the rudder was right out, and I could see the bottom. And then gradually she glided away, and that was that. That was the last of the Titanic. I didn't want to die. I mean, I didn't see much chance of living, but I was gradually getting frozen up.
He didn't want to die, but he didn't see much chance of living. Poor. How many people can say they've been in that place?
And by the grace of God, I came across a lifeboat.
Grace of God. He came across a lifeboat, so he was freezing, really cold, thinking this was it.
And they pulled me in. And there was a fireman dead in the bottom. There was about a foot of water in this boat. There was another man who was trying to. He seemed to be trying to get away from it again. I don't know what was the matter with him. They were tying him down, and the rest were women and children. And I sat on a seat, and who should be? I sat next to Mrs. Clark, the girl I'd put into a lifeboat, and she said the first thing she said, "Where's my? Have you seen my husband?"
What are the chances? The person who saved him and rescued him is the woman that he put into the lifeboat. You couldn't make this stuff up, could you?
So I said, no, I haven't. But I expect he'll be all right. Anyway, I was in a pretty bad way then, as you can imagine. Frozen solid almost. And she wrapped me round with a cloak. She had some sort of blanket or a coat on. Anyway, I think she probably saved my life. I don't know. But I saved hers. At least I think I might have done. I think I did. And she saved mine.
It's just unreal, isn't it? He saved her life and then she saved his. But if he hadn't saved hers, she wouldn't have been there to save his.
First light, the Carpathia came along. Carpathia was about 7,000 tons, and they were going to the Mediterranean, absolutely loaded. And they took us all on board, took us to New York. That was that. Captain Roskin was knighted for his job. He did a damn good job too.
I believe you've even got a watch that you were wearing at the time when you went into the water.
Yes, yes. Oh, but and it's only an old gunmetal watch, but I couldn't afford anything better in those early days.
Better in those early days. So he was on this giant ship, probably one of the most expensive ships in the world at the time, because he was working on it. He was having a similar experience to the people who could afford to go on it.
Yes, here it is. This
What
one.
does it show us? That says 2:20. What time was it when you went into the water, do you think?
I think about 2 o'clock. I think it lasted. It was frozen up like I was. I think it lasted for about 20 minutes.
That looks like 2:22 to me. What do you think? Let's have a quick look, shall we? 1, 2, 15, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's like 2:21, isn't it? And then 2:20 and a half. Wow. What's the name on there? I can't see that.
I think about 2 o'clock. I think it lasted for about 20 minutes in the water.
Does talking about this incident bother you like you have been today?
Talking about it? I should probably dream about it tonight. Have another nightmare. You'd think I'm too old for that, but you'd be amazed. You lie in bed at night and the whole thing comes round again.
See, there's the trauma right there, isn't it? The whole thing comes round again. I'm just amazed that not only did he live to tell the tale, but the tale that he had to tell was amazing, wasn't it? It was like little miracles happening all over the ship. And when you get these massive disasters, I love to hear about the miracles and the perfect timing that saved people's lives. Thanks for watching.